a sculptor, you probably, I mean, tons of those toys you guys play with. You know, the ones that your mom told you, you know, to put away, and you're like, you know, anyways.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So, first off, most important question. You like puppy breath?
Puppy breath is, for me, it's how I know God exists. Puppy breath. It's precious.
So tell us about the work that you do. I mean, you are a sculptor, but you're so much more than that.
Well, yeah. You know, because I like to do other stuff besides sculpting. Stuff that my wife makes me go hiking sometimes. And so there's that, and that's kind of fun. When she's not taking me on death marches. So that's, yeah. And we have a one-eyed pug that is, my wife named him Winston, and because he has one eye, I wanted to name him Snake Plissken. Or Mr. Cockburn. I would have even gone for Polyphemus, but she canned all of this. Anything that's non-work related, she makes all the decisions. And actually, even work related, she makes all the decisions. Yeah. So, but she's very sweet about it.
She seems like a very nice, intelligent woman. So have you ever sculpted anything based off of her? Do you ever model her?
Most of my sculptures now have her nose. Yeah. Yeah. But otherwise, she tells me I can't really sculpt all of her because I'm only supposed to sculpt stuff that will pay the mortgage.
So you've sculpted all sorts of stuff from superheroes to celebrities. Currently you're doing the DC, the Bombshells. Sorry, I'm thinking of the comic-ettes, which you did for
Sideshow.
Marvel. Yeah, Sideshow and Marvel. So how often do you actually have to work with actual models?
How often do I work with them? I'll shoot models for just about every project that I do. After the wife okays the models. So and then occasionally we'll have like models come in, like if it's a really dynamic pose, like the Laura Croft, Adam Hughes Laura Croft premium format, we'll have a model come in while I'm actually sculpting to work on like knees and elbows and making sure that we get an appropriate level of tension in the muscles. So,
It's kind of a silly question, but I'm wondering this now. Do models necessarily have to be like attractive? I mean, couldn't you just like pull in anybody and be like, he's got the right knees, you know, and just model it after him, you know?
I could, but why would I? I could have him come in, and as opposed to like, beautiful model coming in, and like
stupid question.
Yeah, you're right. It was.
Yeah.
So, okay, out of all the things that you've done,
Rio, you're coming in to model for me next.
What are some of your favorite projects that you've done with your favorite sculptures?
Yeah, well, no, it's because the funny thing about it is sometimes a project you think the idea of the piece ends up being much more attractive than doing the piece itself. Like, there's one particular character that I did a few years ago for Sideshow that they said, hey, we've been talking about doing this character for a while, and it's one of the few non-female characters I've done. They said, we've been talking about doing this character for a while, and it's finally come up in our billet. Do you want it?
Yeah.
And without thinking about the complexity of this character, I immediately said like, oh yeah. And a big part of it too was like I was seeing what fans were saying online, and wouldn't it be great if Tim did such and such? And so I'm reading that, and it's like fueling the ego, like, yeah, I totally want to do that. And then they send me all the reference from the film studio, and it was like my heart sunk into my stomach, and I don't know, I probably cried a little bit too. Maybe peed myself also, because it was just like, nah, this is like, and it was one of those projects, it was so complex, the character broke down for engineering, it broke down into like 25 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was just like the most complex, the most detailed piece I've ever done. And afterwards it was like, I'm so done with this property. And I probably told my project manager that too. I was like, yeah, you know what, I don't really need to work on that film's characters anymore.
Can I ask you who it was?
Gimli. So yeah, like just like all the leather that's like woven together like this, and like
Everybody guess, yeah.
Yeah, just a nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so you run your own business, right?
mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I work at my kitchen table. Netflix is constantly streaming. I used to work in the basement, but my wife never came down there to visit me, and I was beginning to feel like a Morlock from, like, you know,
Yeah,
time machine.
the time machine.
Yeah, and like my eyes were starting to get big. I was looking a little Schmeagol-esque, and the loincloth didn't help that much. Yeah, so now I pretty much work at my kitchen table.
Okay.
So when people come over, they go like, "Oh, is it always like this?" Yeah, and there's usually like several projects going on simultaneously.
Okay.
I mean, DC is obviously our main client right now, but there's always lots of other things going on. Always a few private commissions. Always like my own craziness going
Yeah,
on. So.
like some of the pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Like the little maggot or little ancient one. So,
Yeah, so the inspiration for those, where does that come from?
Well, Little Ancient One, that's sort of my take on the Cthulhu mythos.
Right.
I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft. And there's lots of pieces that I would like to do, but there are already so many exceptionally talented sculptors that have already done tons of very cool Innsmouth citizens and things like that. And I would just feel silly doing that now. And that's probably why I did like the Little Ancient One as opposed to like a traditional Cthulhu, because I hadn't really seen anybody do like sort of the super deformed sculptures of Cthulhu, and I just recently saw Lee Joyner, who's a very gifted sculptor. If you haven't seen his work, definitely check him out. He's done this big, huge Cthulhu that's just like super detailed, and it's kind of killed all the spirit in me for actually doing my own. So this is it's kind of a nice different take on it.
Okay.
And then as far as maggot, I don't know where that I've got. There's garbage up here that sometimes it comes out in sculpture.
That's
So-
that way.
Next question.
Yes,
You know,
in the purple.
I thought this is kind of a good question.
In the purple.
Is all of your work done first in a medium like resin, or where you actually are hand sculpting it and it's then scanned in, or are you doing stuff ever that starts digitally and then gets? What's the order?
Yeah.
What's the process?
I am actually in the process of learning ZBrush because that's where the industry is going. It's definitely going more towards digital. It's a much faster medium. For me, all of the stuff that you've seen from me so far is all traditionally sculpted. So I'll usually start off, I'll do an armature in wire, then go into clay, and right now I'm using Monster Clay. It's a fantastic medium. And once I get the piece usually 80 to 90% done in the Monster Clay, I'll make a silicone mold off of it. I'll cast it up in, some people call it toy maker's wax or machinable wax. I'll cast it up in wax, and then I can go and I can do the rest of the detail in the wax. It's very hard. It's what we refer to as non-malleable. So even if you heat it up, you're not going to be able to push it around much, but you can get super crisp details. And then from there, usually it'll go off to a mold maker that'll prep it for, that'll mold it up so that it can be sent off to Asia and mass produced there. So, yeah.
Thanks.
But so far, there's only been a couple of pieces of mine that after they were finished, because the client decided that they wanted to change the size format, that they would scan it and then output it so that they would output it at a different size. But that's very rare. So, yeah.
Okay.
But good question.
Yeah, very
See,
good question.
good question.
Guy in a purple shirt.
So you've been doing this sculpting thing for quite some time now. What got you into this business in the first place?
Well, how much time do we have? I'll give you the really short version. I was working in the art gallery on my college campus. I was a biology student. I was in my senior year. I happened to meet, because of one of the exhibitions in the gallery, I met a bunch of special effects artists. I was already planning on taking a couple of years off from college before applying to medical school, so that, just to get my head around medical school, I don't know. And I ended up falling into special effects work, mostly through ignorance and not realizing that the people that what they were doing was a specialized skill, and I just thought, I could do that. And I made that face too. And so after 5.5 years in special effects, the company I was working for, they also did collectibles, and I left after 5.5 years and just started doing collectibles and landed McFarlane as a client within, 3 months of being freelance. And so, yeah.
This guy, yeah.
So. Oh, what is that? That's not specialist. Doesn't everybody do that?
Everybody's doing
Keep it to yourself. I guess he has.
So to wrap this up, if you had any advice or anything you just want to say to your fans and the people in here, what would it be?
Stay in school, don't do drugs. No.
Something better, because certainly not.
Work harder than everybody else. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is the people that get the cool jobs are the people that are willing to bust their tails for it. Don't make excuses for your work. Find mentors that are already doing what you want to do, and if they see that you are genuine in pursuing it, they're usually going to be likely to look out for you and help you out. But first and foremost, work your tail off. If you think you're working hard enough, you're not. So, because all the guys that are really there and making it, we don't feel like we're working hard enough. None of us do. And so, yeah, get out there, go after it, and you have to want it more than everything else.
Well, thank you very much, TK Miller, ladies and gentlemen.